Hello everyone. I'm Youssef Said, and today I'll be presenting a very interesting topic about how can culture shock act as a barrier between newcomers into a community. I'll be giving a brief introduction about the topic, then I will explain what is culture shock, the stages of culture shock, the barriers that sparks culture shock, as well as the advantages of culture shock and the solutions to reduce culture shock. Introduction. Yearly, a lot of people move or migrate from the original society and face culture clash when they move to a new community. As a result, they do not adapt with this new community or society and start to have mental symptoms of depression and loneliness. What is culture shock? Culture shock is an awkward feeling of confusion and surprise that people face when they are subjected to a new ideas, culture, traditions. Culture shock can be referred to as culture clash, as two different cultures with two different ideas they clash together, causing some difficulties. Removing a person from an environment can cause someone to have psychological disorders, which can make this person feel dispatched or alone from society, which is a really difficult thing. Here is a comic that shows culture shock. Here the woman says, I love it here, fight on. Then she talks on the phone and says, no one understands me and everything is so different. However, at the end, she says, it's not bad after all, as she starts to develop more communication and adapt to the new community. For a newcomer moving into a new community, it is never easier to become part of the community as if nothing has happened and you haven't moved from an older place to a new place or from an older environment to a new environment. But actually, a person will have to move through the four stages of culture shock in order to achieve cultural adjustment and to begin to feel normal again. The first stage is the honeymoon stage. This is the stage in which a person is excited and enchanted by the scenery or the people. That he may find the people very hospitable, very nice, but ignore all the difficulties and the hindrances that may come in the way. Then comes the difficult stage, which is the culture shock. This is the period staged by surprise and frustration, and maybe an anxiety. As the happiness gradually disappears, one will face difficulties and will be put into uncomfortable situations, which will make him feel not fitting into the community and double his thinking again of going back to his old community and his old environment where he feels normal. But actually, culture shock is a normal thing and it must happen anyway. Then comes the adjustment stage. The adjustment stage is the stage in which an individual will start to adapt to the foreign cultures, to the foreign ideas, to the foreign traditions, to the behaviors, and everything starts to be familiar with. The routines will start to get in. A person might be overtaken by his work, by his education study, for studying abroad, for example, by the family. And this stage actually differs from one person to another based on the personality and the background of this person. Then comes the adaptation period, in which an individual, which is the final stage in the culture shock, in which an individual or a person will feel more comfortable in his new life. This new life is now set, and he's able to communicate with everyone as if he's back at home. He's ready to include the new ideas around him, and he would start to feel normal again. Barriers that spark culture shock: meeting new people, for example, or moving into a new environment, eating new foods that are new to this person, adapting to a new language or dialect, or even being separated from the people you love. Actually, personally, I've been through culture shock I moved my father had a tragic accident and he was injured hardly falling from the second floor. And he was sent to Germany, where my family and I moved there for an overall of 1 year and a half. I faced culture shock when I usually go to Germany as a tourist, and I was surprised when I went there to settle in and to live there. The life was very harsh. At first, I thought the people were very hospitable and nice. The scenery was very good and enchanting. I've been through every stage of culture shock. Uh, then that once I will tell you about the situation I've been through. Once I was in the supermarket and there was a 3 cent change that I didn't have the 3 cents to pay for my order, and I told the man that I could bring it to him afterwards. He told me, no, you have to pay or you leave. I was surprised by that because in Egypt, for instance, if I go to a supermarket and there's £1 or £2 change that I don't have, he would tell me it's okay, bring them later. And this was an uneasy feeling for me to overcome this part. So this actually shows how different cultures um, different cultures come together and the clash occurs and the culture shock occurs. The advantages of culture shock. I believe that culture shock there is a very good advantage that if someone takes would be very very useful for his life as for his or her life, as you might take the ideas of your old ideas, your old culture, and the new idea, the new culture, and actually diverge them together into a new perfected culture, which could be very useful, leaving the negative sides of this and the negative sides of that, producing a very good perfected culture and a culture diverse mindset. Another advantage of culture shock is that it boosts self confidence. It increases the adaptability for someone in order for him to move from one society, from one environment to another, without harshly feeling the effects of culture shock, as I mentioned before. There are other advantages of culture shock, as it expands the mindset of people, creating an open-minded experience. As I've been through this experience before, now I'm able to move from one society to another without facing the difficulties that I've been through. And it actually culture shock strengthened my communication ability because now I'm able to communicate with people with different people from all around the world, from different communities or cultures, as I express neutral behavior, not with my ideas or my culture. I actually express neutral behaviors for order not to be offended or someone to be offended from my background, but only show neutral feelings, neutral emotions, communicate in a neutral way. Solutions that reduces culture shock. There are many solutions that can reduce culture shock heavily. One of them is learn the new language before going. When I went to when I've been through culture shock, actually I had a background about the language of the place, which helped me greatly in communicating with the people, as I couldn't know how to communicate with them at first. But because I had the language, it played a heavy role in me understanding the culture and the behaviors and the expressions of the people. And actually, the second most important thing is to do research before going to any place about the community's culture, tradition, stereotypes, in order to expect what you're going to see when you reach this new place. One of the most important skills or one of the most important emotion to have is to be patient with dealing with the new community, because if a person might not be patient, he might not take it anymore and leave this place and feel dispatched by it and go back to his old environment. And finally, one last point in the solutions is to focus on the positive things that you have in your life, and not to look into the holes or the missing points within your within the mindset. In conclusion, I believe that culture shock should be taken seriously because it acts as a barrier between communities and people moving further from one community to another. The solutions for culture shock actually does not remove it completely, but it actually acts as it reduces only culture shock, but it doesn't remove it, because actually it differs from the personality of one person to another, the mindset of one person to another, as one person might be open-minded and has the ability to adapt to to the expressions, to the behaviors, to the traditions, to the cultures, while another might be close-minded. For example, the people who, for example, I give you a very brief example, like the Chinese people in America. They go to the Chinese town in the area and they would live in it. In this Chinese town, the people will eat Chinese food, celebrate have Chinese celebrations, um, communicate with each other with the same language, which is actually good, but actually it doesn't differ from the being in China. So what's the point from to moving to a new community, having new opportunities, meeting new people, having new cultures? And this would be it for my presentation. And thank you.